Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with injuries? Do you want to start with week 1? Should we talk a little bit about the injuries here?
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough weekend, I think, comparatively speaking to some of the other ones, right? We had key contributors for teams, not necessarily out for the season in a lot of cases, but we'll miss, I think, important time.
Well, J.K. Dobbins,
who
out for the season,
from all indications was having a fantastic camp, was looking very good. Big part of that run game that I think is different for the Ravens than it is for most teams. So that one wasn't great. It does sound like it's even worse than just a simple ACL too. So, not great for one of the Ravens' top 2 picks last year.
Then Irv Smith, your guy, Irv Smith.
He looked great the other day. He was the highest graded Vikings offensive player. Probably will miss first month or so.
Could be potentially more, yeah.
So if you're looking at Minnesota right now, right, the easiest part of their schedule is the beginning. And they're on offense going to be without Irv Smith, first-round pick Christian Darrisaw, Wyatt Davis, who was a draft pick that they wanted to start, not ready to start. Adam Thielen, banged up after preseason week 2. Justin Jefferson hasn't practiced since the AC joint injury. You're already not good at wide receiver after those 2 guys. So you're thinking, if you're a Vikings fan, you're looking forward to that first month or so because you have a relatively favorable schedule, and now sort of no one's there for you. It could spell the beginning of the end, I think, for the Vikings, unfortunately.
Wow. Fighting words.
I mean, what do you want me like?
Came out swinging.
Yeah, and then they got the Harrison Smith deal done, which is good for Harrison Smith.
Yeah. What was your take on that deal, by the way? That's a big extension for.
Yeah, there are outs there, but again, it's another example of the Vikings not understanding that their window is probably closed, right? Like they continue to try to put the band back together. They did it with Kyle Rudolph last year, I think. They did it with Linval Joseph a couple years ago. And, like, these deals just are like, at this point, like, you only have so many valuable assets that other teams are going to want to trade for. And Harrison Smith was one of them. I mean, Harrison Smith, since joining the NFL in 2012, is the second most valuable safety in the NFL. Almost more than 3 wins above replacement. Devin McCourty's the only guy who has more. And since Mike Zimmer took over the Vikings in 2014, he's first. Along with guys like McCourty, Tyrann Mathieu, Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins, by the way, signed for a lot less than this when he went back to New Orleans. So the Vikings not even really looking at the comparable markets either. It's just probably a frustrating thing if you're looking to the Vikings' future.
Yeah, so since Zimmer took over, he has only graded outside of the top 15 at his position once. Over the past 4 seasons, he's been first, then he was 13th, then third, and then last year 14th, which is actually his lowest PFF grade since Zimmer took over. So it's an interesting time to pay a guy that much money, make him the second highest paid safety in the NFL, which is what they did. Other news.
He's also the 6th oldest safety in the NFL. So like there's a little bit of that too.
Look, we're not going to judge people based on age.
Yeah. Sure.
Not going to do that. Not going to do that here on this podcast. I guess a couple of other newsworthy points here. Some starting quarterbacks that were named. Right, Ryan Fitzpatrick officially of my Washington football team is now the quarterback there. We've got Jameis starting in New Orleans. The Jameis starting in New Orleans thing is nice to see. Are you updating your New Orleans takes all their win total at 9?
No,
right
we'll talk about the Eagles in a second. For them and the Eagles, I'm on their under, but the quarterback situation has me paying attention. I'm not like I'm not going to be as easily dismissive of their straits this year, but I'm not necessarily like I still think it's a tall climb for Jameis to be over a 500 quarterback, and so. Especially with that supporting cast. Now, you look at the Saints, though, defensively, they're good. They're nowhere near as deep as they were last year, right? You kind of lopped off one good player from, like, sort of every level of the defense. Brian Poole just got injured. Patrick Robinson retired. Marshawn Lattimore has a suspension, I believe. you lost Janoris Jenkins. On the defensive line, you lost Trey Hendrickson. David Onyemata's suspended early on. So you lose like a lot of the depth that made that defense great last year. On offense, you still have a great offensive line. You have a great offensive play caller. You have no weapons other than Marquez Callaway, who I think like has to prove obviously that he's a receiver that can play the whole season really well.
That's kind of scary. Last time we saw Jameis Winston, he had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And now he has Marcus Callaway.
And he was very good, other than the interceptions.
Other than the interceptions. Minor detail. I mean, he's looked really good in preseason, but it's preseason for a reason. The other quarterback move that I thought was interesting, and I'm curious because we actually haven't really talked about this one, but the Eagles trading for Gardner Minshew. Mm-hmm. Should Gardner Minshew start in Philadelphia?
I think he will eventually, yeah.
How long do you think that takes? Why wouldn't it be week 1?
Well, because he probably doesn't know the offense. Jalen Hurts, I think, has the locker room's attention. Like, I think people respect Jalen Hurts in the locker room, that kind of thing. But I think what this is going to do, we talked about this off air, but like I think Flacco's the backup. I think if a game goes pear-shaped or Jalen Hurts gets hurt, Flacco's going to go in. But I don't think Flacco starts a game for the Eagles this year. You know what I mean? And I think by the time this is covering their asses in case Hurts is bad or gets hurt, and there's like 12 games left on the schedule, and they're like, well, I don't want to develop Joe Flacco for 12 games. Let's go ahead and develop Gardner Minshew. I still think, though, Minshew probably needs a little bit of time behind Hurts to develop, I guess. I don't know.
To develop?
Well, not to develop, but like he needs to learn the offense. He can't just go out there week 1. Can he?
I don't know. Here's the interesting thing about that move is Gardner Minshew has played on a really bad team for his first couple of seasons in the NFL, right? I mean, the Jaguars have been absolutely terrible, and they've had no offensive line. They've had scattered weapons here and there. They've had very, not a great coaching situation. It would be interesting, though, now he's on a team with some weapons. Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, like some guys that can make some plays. You got Miles Sanders there. Offensive line is not as strong as it's been in the past, but it's also not the worst offensive line in the NFL. There's some players there. And Gardner Minshew is accurate with the football. Yeah. You think about Jalen Reagor, Devontae Smith, guys that can get open, make some moves after the catch. If you bet the under on the Eagles win total,
I'm nervous.
You're gonna be a little nervous.
You're
That's
a little
kind
nervous.
of my point, right?
You're a little nervous.
Are you more nervous? You're more nervous now than you were a few days ago.
Of course, but like because the tail risk of having Joe Flacco play all the time was certainly there. But like if you are Nick Sirianni, you're also a little happy, right? If you have a Sirianni first coach fired ticket,
I do.
You're a little nervous. Well, it's a long shot bet to begin with, but you're like not all that happy, right? Because like the fact of the matter is there are 2 quarterbacks this year now for the Eagles for whom you could come out of the season somewhat enthusiastic. Right? Like if Hurts plays all 17 games or some big subset of that and is okay, well, that's good, right? If Gardner Minshew does, that's good. Mm-hmm. If you have to grind through some Joe Flacco starts, that would suck. But I don't think you have to anymore. I think Flacco, again, is going to stay on the roster as a backup. But it's very much of the is sort of, I can't remember, like there were these circumstances that always happen where, like, I told you the one where it was like Alex Smith, then David Carr, then Troy Smith. David Carr like would come in but then like when they were ready to bench Alex Smith, they went to Troy Smith for the last like 5 games. The last Harbaugh Niners year. I remember it was like Mike McMahon was the same way where like, the Eagles had Coy Detmer behind McNabb, and then McNabb got hurt. And they're like, well, fuck, we just got it. We're going to start this young guy because, we have to find out what we have in him. I think that's going to be the case, hopefully. I mean, no one wants to see Flacco play games this year, and I think that alleviates you from the chance.
I would love to see Joe Flacco play games this year. That's the content I'm here for. I'm very much here to see Gardner Minshew play, though. Like, I thought that was,
Yeah.
It's
The
an
Eagles
interesting move from
Eagles are going to
perspective.
stink though, right?
Yeah, but it's super. I'm trying to get inside. I'm trying to think about the Eagles' perspective on it, and is it because if you're the Eagles and Jalen Hurts is not good, I actually do want Joe Flacco to start because I want Spencer Rattler. I want whoever quarterback one is.
I mean,
So it's interesting to me to be like, yeah, let me bring in Gardner Minshew, who raises our floor, unless you think he's got legit, ability to be a starting quarterback. Now, I'm gonna let you answer that question here in a second. I will say this: if Gardner Minshew plays well, his mentality, the fact that he wears like the American flag pants or shorts or whatever pantaloons, whatever you want to call them,
Pantalones.
is going to resonate so well in Philadelphia. That could actually turn because think about it, if Hurts is not good and then Flacco plays, it's going to be an absolute
when
disaster.
McMahon played in Philly, Jim McMahon played in Philly, he was adored. And he was not very good, but they had a great defense, and he wore a bandana under his helmet. He was just fiery. He would take hits. And I feel like Minshew is sort of like a McMahon character, right? Where he doesn't have the greatest tools in the world, but no one's ever gonna be like, God, I hate watching Minshew play football. No one's like that.